Hello, Mr. Montalvo here, U.S. History. Today we're taking a look at Unit 4, Lesson 2, Day 4, which is to understand the economic practices that took place prior to the Great Depression and some of the reasons for the Great Depression. Now, our objective for today is to examine how the economic practices of the 1920s contributed to the coming of the Great Depression. And some vocabulary that's going to become important, some terms that we should know moving forward with this topic. Credit, which is the borrowing of money. A suburb, which is a community located outside of a city. And a bull market. So this is referring to the stock market, and it's a period of increased stock trading or the rising of stock prices. Now, Joseph Warren was elected as the new president in 1921. Now, World War I helped the economy greatly. Factories expanded rapidly to meet the need for military supplies. However, when World War I was over, more than 20 million soldiers came home looking for jobs, and factories stopped turning out as much material. And as a result, there were less jobs. Now, high unemployment usually results into a sharp recession, a downgrade in the economy, or a decline in the economy. Now, on the day that Harding died, Coolidge, the vice president, became president. Calvin Coolidge set out to cut regulations on businesses to make the country prosper. Going back to that laissez-faire type of economy, that hands-off economy that we've described a few different times throughout U.S. history, where the government gets involved as little as possible with businesses and allowing them to expand. But there are, of course, some negative drawbacks to that, particularly when we look at the Industrial Revolution. While the government was not involved with business and business was booming, there were many negative effects to the individual workers. As a result, industry experienced a rapid economic growth, and as a result, employment and incomes rose. To encourage the buying of products, businesses allowed installment buying, or buying on credit. So you didn't necessarily need the full dollar amount of what you were purchasing. Retail buying on credit became a major trend characterized in the 1920s and continues to this day, this concept or idea of consumerism, the purchasing of goods. Automobiles, radio, motion pictures, and television were technological advances of the 20th century, and this pretty much standardized American culture. The boom years of the 1920s were characterized by widespread use of the automobile and increased buying, once again due to the option of purchasing through credit. Now, the cost of the Model T in particular dropped from $850 to an average of $290. This was due to increase in production due to, once again, Ford's assembly line. The idea of being able to use interchangeable parts and align them to an assembly line to rapidly or mass produce products or goods. While this was utilized and really codified by Ford, many other businesses, with the low cost of the automobile, people moved outside of the city to smaller towns called suburbs. The business boom of the 1920s was fueled by radio, which became very popular in the 1920s. The advertising industry persuaded people to buy more. A basic cause of the Great Depression was the overproduction of consumer goods. In 1929, the average family earned about $2,000 a year, and on average, many of them were spending much more than that. Now, factories had to slow down because the production was low, so demand was low. Consumer demands was low, while industrial supply was high. So the economic boom and the financial speculation of the 1920s were the cause in part by installment buying, in addition to an unregulated stock market, that bull market that we had been discussing before. And because of this bull market, there was a belief in a never-ending prosperity. This helped to promote heavy increases in stock speculation. And at the same rate, many people were purchasing stocks that didn't have the money to purchase them to begin with, in hopes that the stocks would then pay for themselves. This would not be the case. In the election of 1928, Herbert Hoover became president of the United States, and he would become the 31st president of the United States with a growing economy. During most of the 1920s, farmers were the group that experienced the most severe economic problems. Their expenses rose higher than the prices that they received for their products. A major reason American farmers failed to obtain their fair share of economic prosperity was due to overproduction of crops. An increased supply lowers the demand, which then lowers the price. This caused prices to drop, as I mentioned, and the farmers' income to fall dramatically. Farmers could not pay off their loans, and after the war, so they lost many of their farms. In August 1929, investors were worried that the economic boom might end, so they began selling off their stocks, causing prices to fall. Many investors purchased their stocks on margin or on credit, as I had mentioned before. When stock prices fell, they were asked to repay their loans. When they could not repay those loans, they were forced to sell their stocks, creating panic in the stock market. Now, desperate people tried to unload their stocks, and as a result, stock prices tumbled further down. On Tuesday, October 29th, also known as Black Tuesday, there was a stampede to sell off stocks in the stock market, really causing all stocks to become worthless. Many people lost everything that they owned when the stock market and their certificates became worthless. Now, the period of hard times that followed after the stock market crash became known as the Great Depression, lasting from 1929 till 1941. Now, we're going to take a look separately at the Great Depression and another one of its causes as well, the environment and how that might have impacted the economy. And in order to get ready for this, there is a close reading attached to this assignment titled Environment and the Economy, Part 1, which will be followed up by Part 2 in Day 5's video lesson. So please do start that by clicking below. So our exit ticket, in order to better understand what we've discussed today, try to explain how the economic practices of the 1920s contributed to the coming of the Great Depression. Think about the topics that we discussed: purchasing on margin, stocks, consumerism, the purchasing of consumer goods on credit. How would that eventually lead to the Great Depression? And that's it for today. Thank you very much.